Testing, way up high. Testing, there you go. Testing 1, 2, won't be this close. Test 1, 2. And I'm going to turn this other one on. Test 1, 2. This is other mic.
It's going out.
Yeah, it's going out. Why is it not going out into the system?
Yeah, I don't know when that works and when
Let
that
me
doesn't work.
see if this is all plugged in over here.
Well, it's got to be because you're seeing his.
No, I know where it is.
You didn't plug in the
Little
audio.
detail plugging in the audio here.
Wait.
Now we got it. Testing 1, 2. I'm going to turn this down a little bit.
Yeah, I first have to adjust here, then you turn it. So turn that down a bit.
Okay.
Now speak.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Test. Test 1, 2, 3. Testing. Test 1, 2. Test.
Okay, it's good here. Now
That's a mic test. Let's clip this on. Can you use this as a handheld or as a clip-on?
Let's see if it works as a clip-on. It'd be a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
How's this? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me in the audience okay? Is that a yes? Okay. Can you hear me in the last row? What's the old line? If you can't hear me in the last row, move on down to the front row.
We have more than enough room today.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think we have some people going to be at home today, and I don't know. We'll see how this works out at home.
So at what point so we're not streaming yet, okay? So at what point do you want to start streaming?
Yeah, I have a slide that says lights, camera, action.
Okay.
And then right after that, because I'll get started probably even in about some of the preliminary stuff, even as people are coming in, because we have more than enough to cover today. How was parking today, huh? Nice?
Will we have training on streaming?
Oh, yeah.
Hybrid?
Yeah. And that's because,
you
know, 30% of the university classes are online, and only online. So this is a one semester oasis for parking. There is lots of parking because at the beginning of the semester is when there's the most demand, as people sort through what classes the university students, the 40,000 university students, decide which ones to drop. But I would imagine by spring semester we'll, unless we run out of the Greek alphabet invariants, and then we'll see probably more online again. Do I need to set the light down lower?
Yeah, hit the presentation.
Yeah, okay. Because when we did it with the video cameras, we always had that problem, but we had problems people cannot see the slides. That's our camera back there, by the way. Hi. As we repopulate. Yeah, yeah. Beating him to death probably propelled him forward and won. So last night, so I had to get up early today to make sure I'm doing this class, giving you the type of program I think is important. So I'm going to start on some of the housekeeping items first, and then we'll go actually start the class for purposes of our videotaping and our live streaming. Destination check. This is see how they run the recall election of Gavin Newsom. It's one of 4 classes I'm doing this semester. You all received, as part of the e-newsletters, the OLLI in-person attendance guidelines. And I bring it to your attention. And because this class is on a topic that sometimes has controversy, that is politics, sometimes has controversy, should we get into it or get into it with your fellow OLLI members, it's always okay to be tough on statements, but not tough on people. We value people and the community over ideological correctness. So share your views when those times, but other people's views, you can disagree with other people, but don't be disagreeable with the people. I have a class notes for this class, and it's a tiny URL / I'm missing a /, so I'll put that in it's tinyurl.com / recall 2021. It's correct at the bottom of the, it's correct right here. I need to put a /. Okay. I've lost temporary control here. There we go. If you want to be on my email list, and if you're already on, you don't need to do anything. If you want it off, let me know and I'll take you off. And if you want on, just sign that list I put out in front of the auditorium today. And that list, you'll get notices, topics, guest speakers, schedule changes regarding the classes I do. And my other classes this semester include the American presidency, that we'll have a class here next Tuesday on money news that will start in October. And every Friday we have a OLLI happy hour, a virtual happy hour. And I invite you to attend virtually. And we just try to be happy with each other, talk about subjects we're interested in. We stay away from religion, politics. I don't know, we may go into sex, but not anything scandalous. That's our happy hour class. As normal, because we are, for the convenience of everyone else, and for hearing, please silence your cell phones. Okay. And our links to our live streaming and recorded classes you can get to off our OLLI website. So if you want to stay home on one of the classes and see it live streamed, you may. Of course, I always like people here so I can see if I'm boring people or not. Usually the third row kind of falls asleep when I'm starting being too monotone. Okay, so let's get ready for the live stream. We'll starting the classes. And now, welcome. I'm Mike Stover. Welcome to see how they run the recall election of Gavin Newsom. I'm very happy you're here today. We have a lot to cover. The election is only 5 days away. It's an election that is being followed throughout the nation on whether or not this is an aberration or whether or not this is a trend of pushback against democratic rule in one of the most democratic states in the nation. It is an expensive election. The estimated cost of the election, the budgeted cost for the election, is $276 million. In large measure because it's an everyone can receive the ballot by mail and you can send it back by mail, but you can also send it back through a number of other ways. And we'll see if this is a beginning of another Prop 13 type of reaction that starts in California and spreads throughout the nation, or it's something like a solar eclipse that happens, and then the moon, I guess it's the moon, or planet, moves on. It's got to be a planet or the moon. Can't be another star. Today we'll talk about the California recall process in summary, and we'll talk about the incumbent and the replacement candidates that have emerged. We'll talk about the issues in this campaign, in this election. We'll talk about some political considerations, the actual campaigning, and should he be recalled, just a summary. And what if it succeeds? What's next? So we'll talk about all those things. Some quick things about maybe me and you. Any new members in attendance today? Of course, I can't see you if you're at home. Thank you for being here. Welcome to OLLI. I hope you'll enjoy the OLLI experience. This semester is our transition back on campus. We're working hard to get it right, and we'll get it right by the time the semester is over with, and we're doing great progress already. Anyone else raise their hand? Anyway, welcome to OLLI. Is anyone else other than new members, first time you attended one of my classes? Because I tend to have a somewhat standard format. Have you voted in the recall yet? Have you voted in the recall? Are you undecided in the recall yet? And haven't returned? Okay, we got undecided. Today is not designed to persuade you one way or the other, by the way, on that. A little bit about me, a background, undergraduate degree in political science, graduate degree in public management and administration. Through college, I was a journalist. And for a span of time before I decided to get a legitimate occupation, I was in political campaign management. So I like following campaigns. I actually served as a congressional aide for a period of time, and then started a 33-year career in local government. I'm one of those strange people in which there are many in California who's registered no party preference. The sources I'll use, when I use sources in this class, are pretty straightforward. Cal Matters, which is a nonpartisan, I believe, nonprofit organization in California that does original reporting on California matters, including this recall. LA Times, Sacramento Bee, Orange County Register, and the news aggregator, Rough and Tumble, which is a great news aggregator on all things California news, particularly public policy and elections. Secondary sources, a variety, 538 on data journalism, Fox News, New York Times, Politico, Wall Street Journal. And I encourage you, of course, to not use any one source, use a variety of sources, and use your best critical thinking. The idea is to get many sources, and out of that, decide what is accurate and what makes sense based upon your life experiences. How and why of the election? Well, California is one of the, actually, many or few states, not a majority of states, but not a handful of states in the nation in which the state officers can be recalled. And in California, that can be done by a petition of 12% of a number equivalent to 12% of the voters in the election in which the candidate had, or the incumbent had run in. That works out to about 5% of adults in California. When you include the people who didn't vote in the election who were registered and the people who are not registered. From the recall petition that placed this matter on the ballot because of the number of signatures it gathered, the reasons why he should be recalled. He implemented laws detrimental to the citizens of the state. Laws he's endorsed favor foreign nationals in our country illegally. People in this state suffer the highest taxes in the nation, the highest homelessness rates, and the lowest quality of life as a result, and the highest taxes in the nation, and the highest homeless. I guess they made that point. He overruled the will of the people regarding the death penalty. He seeks to impose additional burdens on our state by the following: removing protections of Prop 13, rationing our water use, increasing taxes, and restricting parental rights. Now, this petition was submitted prior to the COVID pandemic, so there's nothing in the actual petition related to that. There are a number of ways to vote in this election. The easiest way for me was to take the ballot and mail it back. You can go to vote centers and drop it off. And those vote centers are all, according to state law, must be open by Saturday so that you can go to the vote centers and cast your votes there too if you prefer. Or get your ballot back postmarked by election day. Yes?
Mike, you said it sounds like the bar for recalling is much lower than high crimes and misdemeanors.
The question is the standards for recall. It's not like impeachment, high crimes and misdemeanors. That's correct. It can be anything stated by the petitioner. There is no independent verification. It is, as some say, as one political columnist said the other day, a recall is a political primal scream. Recall is a political primal scream. And whether or not you favor a recall or oppose it may be a political Rorschach test about how you feel the incumbent is doing. I like him, I don't like him, or I like her, or I don't like her. And you'll come up with your own reasons. Now, of course, that's not the reason why the recall was originated in California. It was to wrest special interest control away from the railroads and other moneyed interests in California. But it has evolved over time.
I just find it interesting. I came across this recently. This recall petition that got accepted was the fifth or sixth one filed against Newsom. The others failed to meet it.
Yes, there were 6 recall petitions against Newsom. All governors seem to generate recall petitions. This one had was supercharged when I think it was a Sacramento Superior Court judge ruled that the petition circulators would have additional time because of the COVID shutdown to gather signatures, and at the same time, the governor inappropriately had the incident in which he went and had dinner at a restaurant without the masks and other precautions, social distancing he was encouraging others to do, even though you can make an argument that the restaurant was within the standards because it was partially open to the air. But it looked very bad, and there was a recall petition at the same time, and lots of money started to come in to help gather those petitions. Yes? Yeah, high crimes and misdemeanor is an impeachment standard by a legislative body, yes. Yeah, the recall is to get rid of, and the ballot, as you all have seen, this is a picture from my ballot, had a yes or no statement, and then the list of candidates. 46 candidates, 45 active ones. Former Congressman Osei pulled out. He's still on the ballot, pulled out after he had a heart attack. Not surprisingly, before the ballots are counted, there's controversy on whether or not that is there election fraud. Former President Trump has already alleged that there will be. One of the candidates running for the office expects shenanigans to occur in the process. There are two big rumors, at least according to the media sources I looked at, out there affecting whether or not this election is flawed already in its vote counting. That there were holes in the ballot envelope to screen out, that allowed the vote counting people to screen out the votes that said yes to a recall. That's one rumor. Rumor two, a felon stole ballots to help Governor Newsom win the recall election. Well, you can read up on whether any of those is true or not. Yes, there is holes to make sure that there's reasons why there are holes in that, to make sure there's actually a ballot in there. And two, yes, there was someone who stole mail, and within the mail were ballots going out. Stole mail, and he was arrested. Okay, let's now go into the recall target. Governor Newsom is only the second governor in California in which a recall reached the people for a recall election. Now, the last time it didn't go very well, Gray Davis, who ironically spent a New Year's Eve, one New Year's Eve with me at, it was with a big group, and it was at an open, non-partisan thing at the Century Plaza Hotel. It was Sammy Davis Jr. New Year's Eve party, and he somehow ended up at my table. I gave him no luck, apparently, because he was recalled with a 55% vote. 45% opposed, 55 for, and Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor with 48% of the vote to the leading Democrat candidate, Lieutenant Governor Cruz Bustamante. Now the governor has a very big budget surplus, and he spread that money around for public policy, and you got to think political purposes too, or at least oftentimes those two things go hand in hand. And he spread it around for a number of reasons in California, a number of purposes. For example, recently, checks went out to a high percentage of the population who filed income taxes of lower income people, received a California stimulus check. But of course, not everyone got the stimulus check, so you always have the problem when you dole out money that unless you have unlimited money, some people are unhappy. People that didn't file income taxes or people who had higher incomes did not receive the checks. Of course, the political writer veteran political writer for the LA Times, George Selton, pointed out this event at the French Laundry, a place I'm sure I could never afford to go to. He went to a bash for a longtime friend, who happens to be a Sacramento lobbyist, and enjoyed his dinner and helped launch the final stages of this recall. There's been a lot written on why the governor is facing a recall. Frustration is one. That same political writer says, in writing a column in which he kind of argued against a recall, said the governor has at least a passing grade of C, not one of the strongest endorsements. The New York Times today editorialized. Now, the New York Times is in New York. Editorialized today on the California recall election, and their first paragraph I thought was interesting. California's process for recalling its governor is so broken, some Democratic strategists are encouraging a vote for a Republican former San Diego mayor because he's not insane. Millions of mail-in ballots were already cast before the state even released a list of qualified write-in candidates to potentially replace the sitting governor, Gavin Newsom, a Democrat leaving voters to choose from a list of 46, mostly gadflies and wannabes. That's the New York Times commenting on a California election. But there's a lot of there's controversy in this election. We talked about the so-called rigged election that is the latest charges. What's the latest polling? As of yesterday, the consensus of political polls that have been done on the California election is that keep, that is vote no on the recall, is 54%. Vote yes on the recall is 42%. And you can see how this has changed over time. That was very close in the middle part of August and started to open up. We'll see if the polling is right. It hasn't always been right. But one of the state's most respected polls, the Public Policy Institute of California poll, shows there actually was very little change if you look at it over time. From March to May to September, the numbers yes on recall and no to retain is very, very close. As a matter of fact, I think Governor Newsom, the Republican candidate for governor against Governor Newsom, was only received 39% of the vote in the last election, or around that number. So we'll see if this is working out as a return of that. Probably the best thing going for the governor is his job approval rating. Generally speaking, a politician below 50% in the job approval rating, it has a problem. Has a big problem. Where the governor has received, this according to a CBS News poll, the highest marks are the economy, dealing with wildfires, crime, which just barely a majority when you consider the no opinion. Homelessness, probably one of his lowest scores. Why are people voting for recall? The CBS. Are they casting yes on recall votes? They don't like Newsom and the job he's doing. To oppose the Democratic Party, to get a Republican governor, these are open-ended questions. To get a Republican governor and to shake things up. To oppose the Democratic Party and to get a Republican governor does seem to suggest. By the way, that's the same reasons in reverse why people are opposed to the recall, at least when they're asked, that they are opposing the Democratic Party and to keep a Democratic governor. So it looks like a lot of partisan tribal instincts coming out. We talked some takeaways from all of that. One, it takes only 12% or 5% of the adult population, in effect, to start a recall. The governor's reputation was hurt by what looked like a hypocritical thing. You stay away from restaurants, you stay at home, and he's out at one of the most exclusive restaurants in California with a lobbyist without the mask and without social distancing. When I go around my community, and my community may be different, but I do see a lot of recall signs. So I don't know if that's a grassroots campaign, but I do see a lot of recall Newsom signs. So, maybe there's other things out there. But I do believe, at least in terms of the governor, the positive job performance polling is a powerful leading indicator of where this election may be going. Still, I think back to the presidential election. There was a lot of early Democratic ballots cast, and it looked like it was going to be, and a lot of polling suggests it was going to be a landslide for then Vice President Biden. And the polling industry discovered that many people were just refusing to be polled. So they would reach Republicans who were willing to be polled, but not the Republicans who were anti-polling or believed polling was being used as a tool against their guy. There was an average error of 3.9% in the 2020 polling. That's a consensus view, 3.9% wrong. So I would not say this election is over. It could be still very close, and it could be surprising. 46 replacement candidates. I won't name them all. They're in the publications you received at home as a voter. The leading candidate, according to the consensus of polls, that is more than 20 polls that have been done, is that Larry Elder, the talk show host, is leading the pack without any really serious opposition. The closest one is the closest candidate that even emerges above 1 or 2% is a fellow named Kevin Pathrath, who has a very popular blog on real estate. We'll talk a little bit about him. There are two other, I thought I would call top tier in popularity, not necessarily in quality, but in popularity and financial resources in this campaign. John Cox, who ran as the Republican candidate for governor 3 years ago. Kevin Faulconer, former San Diego mayor. And as I talked about before, Larry Elder and Kevin Pathrath. Matter of fact, there's 3 leading candidates, 1 tier 2 candidates, named Kevin. Big year for Kevins. We have a son named Kevin. He's not running. But two persons, this looks like a 2-persons race. And Governor Newsom and his campaign organization is actually advancing Larry Elder as the leading opponent by focusing in on him. And that helps him elevate his status, will help him get among Republicans designated as if the Democrats are against Larry Elder, maybe he's the guy for us. And who is Larry Elder? Well, he's 69 years old. He's obviously a Republican. He grew up in South Central Los Angeles. He left South Central and was very well educated, became an attorney, and then started working as a talk show host. Strong believer in school choice, public safety programs, having judges be constitutionalists, not policymakers. He dislikes teachers' union, government welfare programs, and what he calls climate change alarmists. And there's a lot of background on Mr. Elder. He is encouraging people in the final days of the campaign to report anything suspicious in the California recall campaign. By being a well-identified conservative presence, he has alarmed Democratic Party constituency groups. It's not surprising that he was a strong supporter of President Trump, though now he is not calling upon President Trump to come out and campaign for him. Democrats in an LA Times, I think this story yesterday, said they're happy, Democratic strategists. They're happy it's Elder. They think that they have changed the nature of this race by making this race as much about Larry Elder as about Gavin Newsom. Again, back to George Skelton of the LA Times. If Newsom wins, GOP will say it was robbed. Remember, only election losers cry voter fraud. That may be true. It may be false. Interesting take. The Washington Post published, either today or yesterday, they gave their highest fact-checking award to, so far, some of the claims made by Larry Elder. Now, that can be a marker. If you're a conservative, being attacked by the New York Times, being attacked by the Washington Post, means that you have arrived. If you get 4 Pinocchio, which is almost, a pathological liar on statements you made, that's a badge of courage. It's because they don't get it. They don't get it. So I present this more as why Elder has been able to generate enthusiasm both for his campaign and for his opposition. So some quick takeaways. The media says two candidates are dominating media discussion, the governor and Elder. I think so. Elder has allowed Newsom to go from a strategy in which it's always tough for a person under a recall to do, and that is it's a referendum election, to a lesser of two evils. You may not like me, but look about him or her. You may not think I'm everything I should be, but do you really want that person? Larry Elder's presence on the media made him well known, particularly in Republican base voter circles, because they like the fact that he owns the libs. He owns the libs. Look that up. He owns the libs. But is he an Arnold Schwarzenegger, who comes out of really kind of a non-ideological area of being a business person, a likable actor, someone that was a superhero in one sense? Well, he became except in the Terminator, but he turned around a little bit in the Terminator. I don't think so. To use Lloyd Benson's famous line about Dan Quayle, about JFK, when Dan Quayle equated his age to JFK's age and why he might be able to be equivalent, said famously, I knew John Kennedy, you know John Kennedy. We'll see. How about the others? John Cox, candidate, business person, real estate mogul. He was the nominee 3 years ago. He bested the field of Republican candidates 3 years ago and got into the California top tier. He started the campaign with a media splash. He campaigned with a grizzly bear, or is it a brown bear? It was a bear that looked pretty. Why am I here, bear? He is a strong proponent of cutting California taxes. Remember, California taxes are among the highest in the nation, particularly on the income tax. He believes that cutting taxes will stimulate the economy and keep businesses in California. Kevin Faulconer has a long-established record as San Diego mayor. He's no longer mayor. He was termed out of mayor. He reached the maximum number of terms. 54 years old. From San Diego, he is considered in his political history a moderate. He was a moderate member of the San Diego City Council, became a moderate mayor in which sometimes Democrats could agree with him and sometimes they wouldn't agree with him on public policy. He is proud of his effort in dealing with homelessness in San Diego and in reducing it, not eliminating, but at least reducing it. But in many ways, he is a moderate. That doesn't appeal to those who feel that the choice should be more straightforward. That is someone that is kind of the anti-Newsom. Faulkner on reproductive rights, on a variety of environmental issues are far different than the other candidates running on the Republican side for this election. The leading Democrat, and this is a Democrat who favors recall, is Kevin Pathrath. He's 29, lives in Ventura. I was listening to an interview on the way in today. Talked about how, as an explorer scout, he learned a lot about law enforcement and that he would bring that experience to being governor of California because he was on lots of ride-alongs before he decided to go into it. He has a good private sector background. He would be, this is his first real venture into politics. And he's no darling of Democratic Party leaders by far. He is no darling. He also has some out-of-the-box solutions, one of which is to end the California droughts by importing water from the Mississippi River by an underground pipeline system. That is a bold idea. That is a bold idea. Okay, some takeaways from the other candidates. Newsom targeting of elder has made it hard for these other candidates to emerge from the field. If the recall is successful, will the same group of candidates run again, or the top tier? Or will the field be clear for Larry Elder? Or will some of these others emerge if the recall is not successful, but we have an election again next year? But I can remember, I'm old enough to remember 1966 when a Democratic strategist thought the best candidate to run for governor or to make the best Republican candidate to get against then Governor Edwin Brown was an actor named Ronald Reagan instead of that mayor of San Francisco, George Christopher. So sometimes watch out what you may wish for. Okay, what are some of the issues in this election, this recall election? I think the number one issue is how you see the status quo of California. Do you believe that immediate remedial action is necessary that would necessitate removal of the chief executive officer of the state during a time of drought, during a time of pandemic, during a time of massive forest fires? Is there enough failing in California to change? And I think that's the primary issue. But there's a lot of issues that could be: pandemic management, school choice, restrictions on students attending schools or not attending schools, whether or not the California curriculum has tilted away from traditional subject matters taught in traditional ways, jobs recovery, business climate, unabated housing crisis, ineffective state bureaucracy, public safety, criminal justice, emergency management, forest fires, preparedness, drought, water management, storage, racial tensions, health access, opportunities, health access, racial opportunities, police reform, institutional racism, and whether or not this is a Trump power grab. Lots of issues are possible. Probably a few are the ones that are dominating, other than, are you happy with today? Pandemic management. The CBS poll on the governor's pandemic management gave him a generally upbeat 60% saying, or actually, what is that? Yeah, 60% either very good or somewhat good in his management of the virus. 40% somewhat bad or very bad. There's a lot of virus in California still. We have, as of September 7th, 8,400 Californians in hospital beds with the coronavirus. However, the number of cases are going down in California, generally speaking, and the vaccination rates are way up. In this, where we sit today, or near where we sit today, in Fullerton, 74% of the population is vaccinated, at least one shot, 67 fully vaccinated. So there's been a lot of vaccinations in California. The governor has in his administration of the pandemic response, did go too far, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, in two decisions. One that decided he hadn't gone too far, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on, and 154 that he had gone too far in terms of applying restrictions on churches that, according to the Supreme Court, were disparate and unconstitutional. And you talk to churches that wanted to be fully open during the pandemic, and that is a black mark against him. And in many ways, many evangelicals are leading the recall effort. Now, we do also know in California still rural hospitals are being overwhelmed. Even though the statewide number is stable, rural hospitals are having hard hits. And that is directly seemed to be correlated with the number of people vaccinated in those rural areas. And there's a clear contrast between the governor and his leading opponents, his replacement opponents. They say in survey after survey, or in candidates forums, or in interviews, if elected, they would roll back restrictions. They would allow, in their view, people, individuals and businesses to decide what restrictions that they would be acceptable to them. School is opening, and it's a real tough year. LA Unified may or may not vote to require all students not 12 and above to be fully vaccinated to attend on-site campuses. That's coming up, I think, today. There's a lot of controversy in this whole area of pandemic response. It is, I think, a Rorschach test to how you're going to vote. If you think the governor has gone too far, you're probably going to vote to recall him. Ironically, one who thought he went too far, one of the recall early supporters and petitioners, now has COVID. But that was, as he would say, that was his choice. Now, some would say, look to Florida and California. Florida didn't shut down their businesses like California shut down their businesses or limited their businesses. Florida encouraged vaccination, but didn't mandate vaccinations. How did they do? Well, 3 months ago, you would think, well, Florida seemed to be doing okay until this Delta variant occurred. And now I think the evidence is more mixed. Most recent statistics I could find as of 2 days ago, Florida had 14,000 people with COVID hospitalized. California, a larger state, having 8,400. Cases per 100,000, Florida 3 times higher than California. Deaths, 8 times higher. stressed ICU beds much higher. So that's one issue, pandemic. Another issue I think that is one being talked about is the housing crisis. And there are more than one housing crisis in California. There is the homeless crisis, probably a problem that California politicians have gotten a D grade or less on. It is the one, a city manager friend of mine told me he advised his city council they had to do something, or he was going to work with another city council, because all of you guys are going to lose. All you guys are going to lose because people want action. Affordability of housing in California, and the ability to allow first-time renters and home buyers to find places in California, to move out, to move in someplace. The Wall Street Journal in a column talked about homelessness is behind the anger at Gavin Newsom. And federal efforts to try, and even state efforts to try to help renters affected by the pandemic have so far failed to get the money out in any appreciable levels. Just a small amount of money, billions allocated to help people with their housing needs or rental needs during the pandemic. Matter of fact, Texas has done a much better job than either California or Florida in getting out the federal money. Now, what are the candidates talking about to solve this housing crisis? Well, that's where it's harder to find clear-cut things. Republican candidates say reduce regulations, allow more spaces within communities to be built as housing, to convert shopping centers, to allow duplex housing in single-family zones. Some Democrats support that as well. As a matter of fact, the legislature has passed that type of bill on to the governor, who probably is not going to take a position until after September 14th on that. Economic recovery. California jobs, number of jobs lost in the economy have not been replaced yet, not anywhere, hardly anywhere in America, and certainly not in California. There are a number of cases of businesses fleeing California for other states, Texas being the most popular of those, some fleeing down to liberal parts of Texas that may or may not be affected by those parts of Texas. Public safety is another issue. Crime rate. Though the crime rate statistics are not as clear-cut, once you get away from murder, which is a pretty good crime statistic, once you get away from murder, the numbers kind of get messy on whether or not there is a major crime increase. However, the governor certainly has supported efforts on no bail efforts, the right of preventive detention, and expanding the release programs from state prisons. Though that, again, you can argue the stats on that. Finally, not finally, but one of the last issues I think that's been brought up, and I think it's one in which the governor is very, very vulnerable on, and that is the responsiveness of state bureaucracy in general and a couple agencies in particular. The DMV. Or, probably more appropriate during this time, the State Economic Development Department that just seems to have a tough time getting benefits out to people who need the benefits, the unemployed. Had a fraud problem and then had a problem getting the money out to the right people. Matter of fact, the federal government had to send in, teams of people to just help out getting the money out in California and other states. So some takeaways on issues. You can make the case this is not really about issues. It's whether or not you feel good about California. Forget about the issues. The issues are what you justify your decision on. You could say that. But I do think there are issues that generate Republican support for the recall. Restrictions of liberties, school choice, high taxes, perceptions of lax law enforcement. For the Democratic base, a Republican power grab. Rolling back the pandemic safeguards. Quote the extreme Larry Elder from how Democrats are presenting him to their Democratic base. So, let's talk about some other things here. Let's talk about, so we talked about the process, we talked about the incumbent, we talked about the replacement candidates, we talked about the issues. Let's talk about the politics of the recall election. And then we'll talk about the campaigning, and we'll end up on the two issues. Then we'll end up on should he be recalled and what happens if he is. What happens next, okay? So we're kind of midway through. Remember Scott Walker? He was the Republican governor of Wisconsin. He rolled back a number of pro-labor, pro-teacher union measures in his state, and he became a target of a recall effort. And he had some popularity problems. So Democrats thought they really had an opportunity to recall Scott Walker. By the way, Scott Walker later lost re-election, but 2 cycles later. But his campaign managers decided to make the recall itself the issue, not what he did or didn't do. Let's make this is not the appropriate issues to do a recall. My guy didn't commit any crimes or misdemeanors. I mean, you redefine what, you try to control the debate language. And some journalists in conversations with Democratic strategists on this election in California said that many of the elements of the Scott Walker playbook is being put back into the Gavin Newsom anti-recall effort. Focus on the recall, inappropriate, power grab. These are not the right issues. But I think, unlike Wisconsin, Gavin Newsom has been able to also shift to lesser of two evils campaigning. How many of you didn't vote for the replacement candidate? Any of you did not vote for any replacement candidate? I think, that's what the governor wanted you to do. The governor made a strategic political choice that this is not an election about me. This is an election about democratic or progressive control of California. If you get rid of me, you're going to get a far different world, an alternate universe, an alternate history. Now, some Democrats said, well, that's a dangerous strategy. Some even said, well, shouldn't we be supporting someone like Kevin Faulconer, who is considered, quote, a moderate, because if you are recalled? And the governor's campaign supporters said, no, this is an all or nothing. We're doubling down. We're taking our stakes and we're pushing them all into the center of the table. We're going to gamble on this issue because we remember what happened to Gray Davis. And when his lieutenant governor campaigned on vote no on recall, but yes for me. Vote no on recall, but vote yes for me to be the replacement. And since he would have been the first Mexican-American governor of California since the early days of California, that had some appeal. Yes?
If Newsom is recalled and a Republican wins, in reality, 15 months to the next election, 75% state Democrats in the
We're going to talk exactly about that in two sections. Hold that. Yeah, what would happen? We're going to talk about that coming up. What would happen if he is recalled? So we'll see if this so-called one-and-done strategy backfires. Now, another political consideration I want to share with you is the demographics of California, particularly the political demographics of California, have changed since the days Gray Davis was recalled. George Skelton points out, math is not on the GOP's side. When you look at the party registration over time, well, let's go back here. Party registration over time, Democrats have kept their dominance. Republicans have not attracting new supporters, and depending upon any given tabulation of the registration, no party preference has become the number two choice, or at least tied with Republicans. No party preference. Certainly not a strong brand. No party preference. We're vanilla, right? No party preference. What about Davis's popularity? Coming into the election, Davis had a 71% unpopularity. Disapproval, 71% going into that recall election. Remember, it was the power shut-offs because of the Enron type of market-based buying of energy. It was big budget deficits. It was the so-called car tax in registration. Just a whole lot of problems. Newsom's popularity coming into it is on the upside. He's upside, 54% positive compared to Gray Davis's 26%. Certainly like to be twice as popular, right, coming into a recall. Now, another political consideration, which you probably read a lot about, but is so true, I think, in this election, is what will be the voter turnout? Are people stimulated enough to take out the ballot, sign it, put it back in the envelope? Obviously study, make up a decision, and mail it back. Postage paid, postage paid. Well, Republicans, according to a CBS poll, are much more motivated to vote and can make up some of their registration differential by just voting at a higher percentage. So the governor's campaign supporters are spending lots of money on trying to get people to vote that they feel would be pro-Newsom, anti-recall voters. Spending a lots of money using Hispanic and Latino, Hispanic, African American, labor, Democratic Party, progressive community grassroots people to help get out people, including paid workers to get out people and spending money. But the governor is also, remember, we read a lot about how there are some states, many states, that are rolling back efforts to encourage voting by putting restrictions in, some of which were removed only for the pandemic. Others were never there, are now adding new restrictions. California is the anti-Texas, is the anti-Florida in that. So what is our California Secretary of State doing? She is spending $16 million. $16 million to encourage voting in the recall election. 16 million. Now, not for whom, not for any one side, but with a particular interest, with a particular targeting of minority communities. This is just one ad, and she's taken out full-page ads in newspapers. You see this in social media. You see this in Twitter feeds, encouraging people to vote. I know when I sent in my ballot, I got a message from my county registrar of voters telling me they got the Postal Service has my ballot. And then a few days later, I got from the registrar of voters, now we got your ballot. And in California, if there was any problem with the ballot, they would then tell us, by the way, you didn't sign your name on the back. You have until, I think it's 6 days before the vote is completed. The final tally is complete, to correct that problem. California is the anti-Texas in terms of voter outreach. I think that's a big political plus going for Democrats and the governor. You can argue the public policy, but I think that's a big plus. Now, the governor is counting on women to support him because women support him, Democratic women. So how's the turnout? As of yesterday, 30% of the ballots in California have been returned. 30% have arrived at the local registrar of voters. In the Gray Davis recall, 60% of people voted. So if that is the measure, and if that is the same level of enthusiasm, half the people have voted as of yesterday, 6 days before the election. And so far, Democrats are doing well in terms of turnout. You don't know how they're voting in terms of that. Governor is also counting upon young voters but perhaps, according to at least one article I read, that former President Trump's effort to about the dangers of voting by mail may be retarding some Republicans from actually voting by mail, and they'll show up on election day and vote, just as they did in the last presidential election. So this, 30% is only a marker that at least Democrats are pulling their weight, are punching at their weight, and they're the heavyweight in California because they have the most voters. But there's probably no group that is more up in this election for intensive campaigning than Latino voters. Latino voters, showed some independence of party in the last presidential election. Though Democrats carried Latino voters against the incumbent President Trump did very well among Latino voters in many areas, including parts of California, and certainly parts of Texas, particularly near the border, and also Latinos in general in the state of Florida. So Democrats and Republicans are aiming lots of effort because the Latino community is the fastest, is the second fastest growing community in California. The first being Asian American voters, Asian American and Pacific Islander voters. So how are they turning out? And I say they as a group, not they as they. In terms of the ballots, Asians are turning out very well in terms of sending in their ballots, as are Democrats, but not Latinos. Latinos are trending not to have either made up their mind or lack of interest as a broader community. We'll see what will happen. We'll see. Now, the case for and against Larry Elder among Hispanic communities can be waged. And one of in many ways, Larry Elder represents many Latino business people and people who were, and voices their concerns about being displaced during the pandemic, losing jobs. Now, an LA Times Hispanic columnist on the progressive side said Larry Elder is the most Latino candidate, and then tried to argue why that won't help him. And his argument why it won't help him is that he can talk about common roots or common interests. He can't get by the Republican Party in this columnist's viewpoint, arguments on immigration. So the former Speaker of the State Assembly, Jess Unruh, one time said in California that money is the mother milk of politics. Money is the mother's milk of politics, meaning you need the money to be successful in politics, for campaigning. So how is it going? Well, this understates some $18 million that was inaccurately reported or not reported for Larry Elder. So that if you added those together, supporters of the recall have spent about or raised about $30 million. Opponents, $70 million, $69 million as of September 8th, as of yesterday. So clearly more than a 2-to-1 differential. Biggest people on both sides. Remember that the elder groups are now up to 18 million altogether. Top recall contributors, anti-recall Democratic Governors Association, the head of Netflix, Reed Hastings, California Democratic Party, and a number of unions. So if you look at, when we think about campaigning, we used to think about TV ads, radio ads, newspaper ads, yard signs, billboards, bumper stickers. What do you think about now? Well, you think about some of those things. Social media, online media. And where are Democrats campaigning on the anti-recall? Well, they're campaigning in the blue areas, or spending disproportionately in the blue areas, the coastal areas with high concentrations of Democrats. While Republicans who support the recall are in more of the inland California. That means to me that they're focusing on their political base, not trying to persuade people, just trying to get out their vote. So, some takeaways. Partisan turnout is undoubtedly going to be the big factor in the recall. outcome. You could argue that the Secretary of State is putting her thumb on the scale with $16 million in voter outreach. Or you could say it's about time. It's about time. The Latino shift could be a spoiler, but probably won't be. At least in the turnout numbers so far. If you don't turn out, you know, you're not going to have a big impact unless the governor's supporters really are counting upon a strong Latino turnout. Money isn't everything in politics, but it's a heck of a lot in campaigns if it's well spent. Okay, 2 more topic areas. Campaigning. They're campaigning. They're out and around. The media is finally, news media finally, and TV stations are tracking them. So you're starting to see and read about their campaigning. The governor had a big rally yesterday with the vice president. President's coming into town. Barack Obama has cut TV ads and radio ads for the anti-recall effort. Larry Elder is going to minority communities to try to help split the Democratic vote, and to churches and other base voter areas for his side. The other candidates try to do it in traditional candidates forum, but neither the governor or Larry Elder showed up, so really those quasi-debates had very little media interest and coverage. Both sides have gone to churches. My doctor yesterday, I went in for a physical exam, and he asked me what I was doing today here at OLLI because he follows me for some reason. I said we were talking about the recall election. He said, my dad's and mom's church, the governor was at over the weekend. At his church. I said, oh, okay. I found out that one of the leading supporters of the recall is from a church in my community, one of the statewide leaders of the recall effort. Maybe that's why I see so many signs in my community on recall. So churches are positions in which, particularly because the evangelical vote on the elder side, Latino, African American, Asian, Pacific Islander vote on the Democratic side. One of the problems when political candidates run to their political bases is you don't get a whole lot of persuasion being attempted. They're just saying, bad, I'm good, bad. And they say things that you probably wouldn't say if you were trying to go after the middle range of California voters. Not surprisingly, Larry Elder strongly opposed sex ed at a church appearance, but it wasn't in his speech. It came up from the minister. But that was the element that the media covered. Governor Newsom he's talking about the difference between California and Florida on abortion. Trying to hone in his message. He's trying to get supporters of his to write stories about how pro-Hispanic and Latino he is. At least in terms of government programs, it's hard to argue that in terms of benefit programs that they haven't been broadened, particularly for the Latino community in which part of citizenship is not a requirement. But one of the issues that concerns Democrats nationally, and that's why Bernie Sanders has cut ads and why Elizabeth Warren has been out, Amy Klobuchar has been out, is that if anything happens to either of our 2 U.S. senators, the governor appoints. It's not ratified by the California legislature. The governor appoints the replacement. And whether or not you believe in the rumors about Dianne Feinstein's declining cognitive ability, you would if you watched a lot of conservative media, that you have to think that, that's the control of the U.S. Senate might be at stake in this election. Now, the governor is ending his campaign by saying he thinks he's in a good place. He thinks he's in a good place politically at this moment. Larry Elder is headed towards the end of the campaign, and on Fox News today they were portraying that how he's being the focus of physical attacks. He was pelted by a homeless person with an egg yesterday, and his campaign was claiming that one of his security people was hit by a pellet yesterday, pellet from a pellet gun, a projectile. The last thing in this section I wanted to point out, remember ballot harvesting? That is when someone comes and collects your ballot. You don't even have to go to the mailbox. Give me your ballot, I'll take it in. Or I'll put out a box in which you can put it in. And some states ban it. California doesn't. Both campaigns are doing ballot harvesting. But you don't hear a whole lot about it because neither one wants to fess up that that's an effort, a major effort for them. Okay, takeaways. Election at this time, all about motivating the base. Little effort to persuade ticket splitting or to attract moderates. I contend that base campaigning turns off moderates, makes them less inclined to vote. There's campaigning. There's what is known in the campaign biz as earned and unearned media. Earned media, you buy, advertise. Unearned, you get through campaign events and other announcements, what have you. Both are ways to get, and now through social media, through other people, liking your news releases and other stories. Both campaigns are actively involved in that. Campaigning to 2021 is more about online than traditional media, and we don't see that. Chances are, if you have a political view that you've expressed, you're seeing primarily one side. You don't know what all the stuff the other side is seeing, so it's hard to gear how active the other campaign is. I think now Governor Newsom is having a fun time on the campaign trail. And there's something about campaigning, sometimes it's a lot more fun than actual governing. Governing with droughts and other things. Okay, some end notes and we'll go into the final piece. Those of you who want to participate in our OLLI Happy Hour, I have a flyer outside on that on Friday. Next Tuesday, we'll be back and we'll be talking about the American presidency, the presidency of course, Joe Biden in this room. So let's ask, should he be recalled or not? And we saw what the poll results are. To oppose Newsom and the job he's doing, to oppose the Democratic Party, to get a Republican governor, to shake things up. Anyone want to raise 2 or 3 other reasons why to recall him? Yes?
Yeah, I think when I look at this recall, you have to understand, we're the 5th largest economy in the world, 5th largest state. And we're going to have an election in a year. So if you vote anything but no, what you're going to do is bring someone in who has, it'll be Larry Elder, doesn't matter who else you pick, it'll be Larry Elder, no public service experience, nothing. He's just a radio host. say what you want. So this election is easy. It's don't worry about it. Unless you want Larry Elder, who doesn't know anything about guns. That's what it is.
Actually, I was asking the reason why to vote yes, but you gave your expression on why not, why it shouldn't be. You're going to get Elder if there is a recall. I'll add to that to the next section. Anyone else with a reason other than those stated in the recall petition for recalling the governor? Yes.
Yeah, I would say that if I were a Republican strategist,
Yeah.
I would say even if you like Davis, you like Newsom, you want a Republican in, even though you think it's not fair to be recalled, geez, this is an opportunity, right?
It's
Strategic opportunity.
so an argument is it's a strategic opportunity. The money is spent. $276 million is going to be spent whether or not you vote yes or no. If you're a Republican, this gives you an extra opportunity at the ballot to remove the Democratic governor. That's a good reason. I mean, that's a good additional reason. Okay, how about no? We heard the argument that if he is recalled, you're going to get a candidate that probably has received maybe only 20 or 30% of the total votes. It probably is going to be the leading candidate in the polls, Mr. Elder. His lack of experience, if you believe experience is important, is not in government, is not there. Anyone else with a no argument? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, question.
And that is, in the language that provides for recall, does it specifically exclude the focus of the recall from being voted for? Because my understanding is, for example, you can't vote no on the recall, but it's a safety vote for Newsom.
You can't, under California law, that the incumbent who is subject to the recall cannot be on the list of replacement candidates. And the reason is pretty simple, I think. And the reason being that that person is likely to be the best known. And the opponent candidates will probably be split among several candidates. So that, if you're going to say you're going to remove the candidate, you remove the candidate. And then you see what happens. Now, there have been proposals to reform the recall system in California, that maybe there should be a top two system on the recall election, that, you get the top two and then you go on to a runoff election or something. Or you remove the replacement candidates and you do like you would do on an impeachment, have the lieutenant governor then step in. Or if the recall is on the lieutenant governor, you have another successor designated. That's very interesting. Well, let's talk about one more thing here. And that's, let me end this section with this one. In many ways, the recall was never about Gavin Newsom in particular, but rather a laundry list of complaints that Republicans have had about liberals. This is from a political science professor at Cal State Sacramento, quoted by the Sacramento Bee. Okay, let's talk finally. What if? What if the governor is recalled? What happens? Well, I got 2 more classes in this series, so we'll find out. We'll talk about it in some of those. Knowing California, if the recall is really close, we may not know for a while. Though I have a feeling that we're going to have a pretty good indication on election night because so many ballots are here. But I do think there will be a Republican shift as the days go on, unlike what happened in the presidential election, in which it shifted more towards Democrats. I think this time it will shift a little bit more towards the pro-recall side. We'll see. Well, if the governor is recalled, And the question was raised by one of our class members, and I think it's a very good question, and that is, the governor is recalled. Don't you still have a Democratic legislature? Indeed, a Democratic legislature with more than a 2/3 majority vote, meaning they can override the governor's vetoes, can cancel emergency orders, emergency declarations, if they stay united. And that's true. And they can pass a budget and raise taxes and pass laws without the governor's approval. But remember, the chief executive officer, the governor, nominate judges subject to the Commission on Judicial Qualifications. But basically, that commission isn't designed to make ideological choices. It's whether or not is the person qualified or not. Do they attend law school? Do they, if they're being a member of the bar, have they have any disciplinary matters? Those types of things. The governor appoints the entire, executive level of the state government, whether that be the head of the California Environmental Agency, or any of the other agencies in California. The governor is a very consequential person, as we know from this election. I mean, know from this year, last 2 years under the pandemic. Governor has powers that is inherent in his office. He has powers, if granted by the legislature, or claimed by the governor and ratified by the legislature, in emergency declarations. So I would submit to you the governor of California is a very consequential, important person, and he can decide within state law parameters when to call a special election to fill a vacancy. It will be, and he has the power of setting the agenda, the informal agenda of what the government is so focused on in California. Now, Governor Newsom said that it was going to be, before the pandemic, it was going to be homeless, dealing with a homeless issue. Then the pandemic came up, and then it was homeless people were just one part of what the California government will do. So we will see. And based upon that, I hope you'll come back, both you in person and you out there in live streaming land. Come back in 2 weeks. We'll see how the numbers are, and we'll see what's next. Remember the movie, The Candidate, with Robert Redford? How many of you saw that movie or heard about that movie? And that was it's probably on one of the services now, Netflix, one of those, in which I think he was the son of a governor, kind of like a Jerry Brown. And he goes through the machinations of a campaign. And there was, had ups and downs in the campaign. It had a nice little drama. But at the end, he turns to a campaign manager who's been telling him what to do all along. And he says, "What's next?" And campaign manager, you're the governor. You have to decide now. Or I think maybe he was running for the U.S. Senate. But in any case, this campaigning is only how, in our representative democracy, you get to power and how you retain power. You still have to govern. And there's a heck of a lot of things in front of California. And this year, for better or for worse, and if you are for the recall, it's probably for worse, the California legislature has had one of its most consequential years in recent history in passing legislation, much of which waits for the governor's signature, which raises the question, and I'll double check this factoid, I only got it from one source, And that is, if the governor is recalled, when does he leave office? And when does his power end? And I think it's so many days regarding when the vote is certified. There's a window. So does that mean he can sign legislation, give clemencies, do those other things the governors can do? Yeah. So Gavin Newsom is going to be consequential for a while, regardless of what happens in this election. It will be very interesting if he is recalled. And I encourage you to come back and we'll turn that page. Either he won't be, and then he has all these issues he still has to deal with. The drought, housing, forest fire management, climate change, public education, K-12, and the community college and the state university and UC system. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And welcome back to campus.
think?
I have placed adhesive microphones on the soundboard.
Yeah.
I think that's ideal for the sound, but I suspect we might have a rumble problem, which is hard to solve. I like that.
I need you to play again. You asked me to sound check and then you stop. Yeah, we got a sound check. Test, test. Test, test. What I'm gonna have to do is I don't want the piano going back through the audio system, so I'm gonna have to turn that off. Mute that while they're playing, but I want them to be able to hear. I want to be
You
able-
don't want the speakers.
So the speakers come off of both mics, I can't turn. So,
Yeah.
and so for it to stream, I have to have it connected to the mics, but I don't want it coming back through the system here. Dr. Watson, good to see you. How you doing?
Fine. I need a copy of the program that Matt brought over.
Ellie has got them, but she's talking, so you're gonna have to go wrestle them away from her. What do you think of the angles?
There's one missing, is what I'm saying.
I'm gonna make this number 6.
Another room, I can't find it.
There it goes.
Okay.
To set us one of these numbers, you just hold the button down until you see the thing flash to tell you it's set.
Show me that.
So here, I just changed it to a whole view. So I just set it to 6. So it's gonna zoom in on him. But to make to set a particular number, you just watch the top of the screen. I'm gonna hold down the 7. And you'll see the top of the screen flash, and the preset is set.
So now it's 6 and 7.
Now 6 and 7 are the same thing, yeah. But 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are the ones that Bob uses, so I'm trying to stay away from those.
I'll introduce you, introduce. Welcome, everybody. Am I in the right place, Jim? Are you ready to start? Yes, we are.
Pay no attention to the little man behind your back.
Now? Mr. Minot? Okay. Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to our live performance, piano performance here. So I hope you enjoyed the program. I'm sure you will. I guarantee you will. I would like, I have two of my favorite people here. Rob Watson, who is one of, no, not him. Rob Watson, who is one of the professors of piano studies, and his student is Matthew Yang. So I'm going to allow my friend here to go ahead and introduce the pieces and give you a plug. There you go.
Thank you very much. Good morning, those of you who are here live and those of you who are there live. We're very happy to have you here today to listen to this performance by Matt Yang. Matt is a piano performance major and he's a jazzer. And those of you who went to his junior recital got an earful of both in spades. It was a really wonderful performance. Before he plays and before I talk about him, I just want to say a couple of things. You know what? I didn't send you a copy of the program, so it's not able to be live streamed. Sorry about that. So I'll tell you right now that Matt will be playing, those of you who are watching on the streaming, will be playing 4 works. The program's upside down. The first one is a prelude from the 24 Preludes by Dmitri Kabalevsky. The second one is a prelude from the first book of the Well-Tempered Clavier by Johann Sebastian Bach. The third piece is another prelude, but this is from a piece called Le Tombeau de Couperin, which translated means the burial or the tomb of Couperin. That's not what it means. It's an homage. It's an homage to Couperin, who was a Baroque French Baroque composer. And the last work is a piano study in mixed accents by Ruth Crawford Seeger, an American composer from the early part of the 20th century. So he's going to say it. You're going to say some things about the works themselves before you play?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So I just wanted to say a couple of things about music. It's about communication. Communication is something that we all engage in lots of different ways. For example, we have a pool contractor who's been at our house for a little over 6 months working on our project. And communication has broken down numerous times. All of you who have dealt with contractors know exactly what I mean. But there's another kind of communication that pianists engage in, and it has to do with the piano itself. The piano will communicate to us certain things. Each piano feels a little different. The keys feel a little different. This is an upright with plastic keys. It feels very different from a grand piano with ivory keys, or a concert grand piano with what Yamaha calls ivorite. So there's just the tactile sensation of the white keys, which are plastic, and the black keys, which are wood, ebony. And you feel something when you play. But there's also how they respond. How the keys respond is a communication from the instrument to you that you can then use in your performance. Again, uprights feel different because they have a slightly different action than a grand piano does. So there's certain things you can do on a grand piano that kind of you try to do on an upright and it doesn't quite work, but you do the best you can. But of course, music itself is communication, isn't it? But for pianists, it's without words. I co-teach a course called Piano Vocal Collaboration, in which we work with both pianists and singers to meld together the idea of music has words to it, and the way you play is supposed to encourage and support and sometimes preempt what the singer is saying. So there's that, but for pianists, we just generally don't have words. Well, we have words, but we don't share them with you. What we share with you is as a result of our thinking about the music itself and what we get from the music. It communicates to us something. which then engenders something in here. So it's the process, the intellectual process, supporting the emotional content. I once had a student who was working on a piece by Schumann, and before the lesson started, she had shared with me about one of her students whose parents were getting a divorce, and this poor little girl, about 10, was just torn up over it. She was sure it was her fault. You know how children will take that kind of pain on themselves. So we talked about that, and then I had her play the piece, and she played all the notes and rhythm and dynamics right, but it didn't communicate anything. I said, so let me try it. So I played, fortunately it was a slow piece, so I could sight play it pretty well. I played it, and as I played, she started to tear up. She said, Dr. Watson, what are you doing? I said, well, you remember that story you were telling me about? I said, I was thinking about this young girl and putting myself into how does this piece relate to her emotional world and her emotional experience? And sort of the light bulb came on for the student, and it was, oh. So you were thinking about this emotional experience while you were playing the piano, and you were trying to use the notes of the piano and the music to somehow react to what you were thinking and feeling. I said, exactly. So when you hear a performance, you're listening for a lot of things, but you're waiting for that communication. And my hope is that Matt will communicate something to you, even though he's anxious about playing for you, that he can put that aside and just focus on what it is that he finds in each piece. Matt, are you going to play straight through all 4 pieces?
I can.
Okay. So you're welcome to applaud in between if you'd like. If you'd rather not break the spell, that's fine too. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Matt Yang. Please welcome Matt.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Good morning / afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all, and it's a pleasure to make music for you live and have your ears just be enveloped with sound, and I really hope that I'm able to do that with you today. So the pieces I've chosen are mostly all preludes. I consider them all preludes in some form. A prelude is a piece that prelude literally means to touch, or sorry, a toccata. And what a prelude does is it warms you up to the keyboard. It can act as an exercise, and it can also be an artistic piece. So many of these that I'll play for you today, if not all of them, contain this warming up of the sound and this sort of like easing you into the piece, at the same time creating this environment, this landscape for you to bask in. And from piece to piece, you'll notice that we jump from warm and welcoming to jagged and kind of turbulent, like this past year has seemingly been. And the idea is they all encompass the same form or the technical structure of a prelude, yet they're all so different. And my hope is you'll be able to hear those differences and really embrace what it means to, again, hear these things in the music. So yeah, thank you.
Well, young man, wait a minute. You've got to turn me on over. Okay. Are you there? Yeah, okay. So is this your last semester?
Second to last.
Second to last. We do get you for 2 more semesters then. All right, all right. Are you competing in an aria competition?
I might be doing the concerto competition, so
Okay.
we'll see. I started on one, so starting, maybe finishing.
Maybe
in about
finishing.
2 months, maybe a little less, so.
Okay, okay, good. You want to share anything particular with the group here?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for coming out here and supporting live music. It was a pleasure to play for you, and I really hope that at anything you got something out of, I guess, like the soundscapes I was attempting to create. And I appreciate you all, and it's a pleasure to see you guys again. So thank you.
Yeah, I get, it's really interesting when you have the students that come over and they play live for you and they sit there and go, I get to play for real live people, you know, so they're really excited about this.
Matt, you have a project coming up this semester or next semester?
That's right, the Sonatina project.
Well, no, I meant with Josiah Gray.
Oh, thank you. Oh, so one of my colleagues, who is a comp major in my piano studio, he is putting together a piano concerto for wind ensemble, and this is kind of like super top secret, so I'm kind of giving you the inside scoop. The concert in next May, we will be world premiering that, and I will be the pianist playing this with the Wind Symphony. So if you can, maybe mark your calendars. I don't know the exact date, but sometime in May. It's the usual. So, but yeah, I'd love to see you all there. Thank you.
And Rob will send me the announcement, right? So I can send it out to everyone? Okay, good. Anybody have questions for Matthew here?
Hello.
Is it difficult to get into the emotional mindset for 4 different musical periods in one performance?
Actually, yes, extremely, and especially because some of them are so disjunct and completely unrelated from each other. If anything, you're moving from antithesis to antithesis. Actually, in our last lesson before I came to play today, I played through the pieces, but we didn't really work on like anything technical. It was just, how do you feel about this, or what's the atmosphere you're trying to create? So all of today, leading up to this, I was just sitting and trying to find like a space, and then practicing moving from space to space. And yeah, it was kind of challenging, not gonna lie. But if you can get that, then it comes across, I think, and then you start to internalize. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions out there?
Not recently, but I did my first year here. It was like an international. It was an international one in China, and we were kind of like ambassadors representing the U.S. from like Orange County. So it was a really really cool experience. But yeah, that was. Thank you very much. It was a great experience.
Any other questions out there? Another one. Okay.
This is a little bit off the wall. You played the Bach from sheet music and the others from the screen. Does that have any impact on how you play?
Oh yes. So normally I would put the Bach on my iPad as well. I see what you're saying. So in terms of like, we're talking sheet music versus like using digital, because a lot of the piano majors, like I go to the 3rd floor and I just see iPads everywhere. Like I don't see, hardcover, the good stuff anymore. I do believe it's convenient, but sometimes it feels like it's missing that the soul, and with these editions, there's, I like paper. I'm a paper guy, so. Mm-hmm.
Bigger notes, huh?
That's right. Actually, I transfer. I gave in. I do my notes on here, but for music though, that definitely printed.
Any other? Huh?
Usually it would have a little bit of history, his biography.
Say that one more time.
Usually in the past it had a biography of him. printed.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's probably my fault.
They're missing your biography.
No worries. I'll make sure to put it in next time. I'll be back, hopefully. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. So I am my name is Matthew Yang, and I'm a 4th year piano performance major. I'm finishing up my undergrad this fall and next spring. Let's see, I'm involved with the Wind Symphony here at Cal State Fullerton, as well as the percussion ensemble, and I was affiliated with the jazz ensembles, and I commission works for them sometimes, so I compose as well. Yeah, I've been playing piano since I was 4 with my aunt in her little upright in the corner of the room, and then I started taking formal lessons when I was 5, so this is my 16th year, yes. But yeah, it's been quite a long journey, and I honestly don't remember the first half of it at all, but these recent years have been very fruitful, so yeah.
One other announcement, do you have any?
I was going to ask you, you have parting words, but go ahead.
Thank you. On the back page, on the back of the sheet, it mentions that there is the Pianist in Performance auditions that are happening 2 weeks from today. And you're invited to attend. They will be held in the lobby of Meng, the grand lobby of Meng Hall, at 1 o'clock. There's no charge to attend, and you'll hear probably 10 or so students vying for the privilege of being an artistic ambassador to the community as a Pianist in Performance artist roster member. So you're welcome to come to that. They'll talk about the pieces before they play, and then they'll play for them. Again, thank you so much for your attention and your interest, and give Matt Yang another round of applause, please.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Good work there. Thank you. That concludes our program for today. Thank you guys for coming and enjoying live music.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you so much.
Nervous, aren't you? I've never seen you that nervous.
Oh, there's